Hey, my more brothers, back again. This is something very interesting. This is a phenomenon that's actually going on around the world, and it's it's actually pre-COVID in Japan, but it's post-COVID in the rest of the world. And the name of the phenomenon is coming from China, but it is affecting the United States too. It's called lying flat, and this is from an August article back in New York Times article back in August 2021. In China this April, a 31-year-old former factory worker named Lao Hezong drew the curtains and crawled into bed. He posted a picture of himself there to the Chinese website Baodu along with the message, "Lying flat is justice." "Lying flat is my sophistic movement," Mr. Lau wrote, tipping his hat to the Diogenes the Cynic, a Greek philosopher who is said to have lived inside a barrel to criticize the excesses of Athenian aristocrats. On Chinese social media, Mr. Lau's manifesto and his assertion that he has a right to choose a slow lifestyle of reading, exercising, and doing odd jobs to get by quickly went viral. Sympathizers share versions of a belief that is gaining global resonance. Work has become intolerable. Rest is resistance. By June, American news outlets were describing the lying flat trend as a natural consequence of China's hyper-competitive middle-class culture, where employees often report working 996 weeks, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, a lifestyle praised by the founder of the online shopping giant Alibaba, Jack Ma, and other captains of commerce. It's not just Chinese millennials who are figuring out that work is a false idol. I should know because I'm lying flat too, holed up in my parents' house in West Virginia. Earlier this year, I quit my job producing an NPR program in Boston, and I haven't been able to stomach rejoining the cacophony of the 24-hour news cycle. I am far from the only one. A new recent tweet that proclaimed I do not want to have a career racked up over 400,000 likes. Instead, proclaimed the tweeter, I want to sit on the porch. Here in the hills, the new silence of my days, deepened by the solitude of the pandemic, has allowed me to observe the state of our planet in the year 2021, and it looks to be on fire as our oligarchs take to the space. From my view down here on the carpet, I see a system that, even if it bounces back to normal, I have no interest in rejoining. A system that is beginning to come undone. The lying flat movement, or Taiping, is known as it is known in Mandarin, is just one expression of this global unraveling. Another is the current worker shortage in the United States. As of June, there were more than 10 million job openings in the United States, according to the most recent figures from the Labor Department, the highest number since the government began tracking the data 2 decades ago. While conservatives blame juiced up pandemic unemployment benefits, liberals counter that people do not want to work just for the paltry wages they were making before the pandemic. Both might be true, but if low wages were all that's at play, we would expect to see reluctant workers at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder and the content workers at the top. Instead, there are murmurs of dissent at every rung, including from the inner sanctums of Goldman Sachs, where salaries for investment bankers start at $150,000. According to a leaked internal survey, entry-level analysts at the investment bank report they're facing inhumane conditions, working an average of 98 hours a week, foregoing showers and sleep. I've been through foster care, said one respondent. This is arguably worse. In the United States, Black activists, writers, and thinkers are among the clearest voices articulating the spiritual malaise and its solutions, perhaps because they've borne the brunt of capitalism more than any other groups of Americans. Tricia Hershey, a performance artist and the founder of the NAP Ministry, an Atlanta-based organization, is one of them. Ms. Hershey says she discovered the power of naps during a draining year of graduate school at Emory University, an experience that inspired her to bring the gospel of sleep to fellow African Americans whose enslaved and persecuted ancestors were never able to properly rest. She argues that rest is not only resistance, it's also reparation. Now, Ms. Hershey leads events across the country focused on the transformative power of rest, and she has influenced other black intellectuals, including Casey Gerald, the author of the transcendent essay, The Black Art of Escape. In it, Mr. Gerald reflects on a year he spent in what he calls a disappearing act, lying flat in Texas, ignoring the calls of friends and admirers to join them in the fray of protest politics, which he'd come to view as a path to self-annihilation. Claim your inheritance, Mr. Gerald enjoins. Miss the moment. Go mad. Go missing. Take a nap. Take a day. Drop a tab. You're free. On Juneteenth this year, Mr. Gerald stayed true to his argument. I ain't writing nothing for Juneteenth, he tweeted. I'm going to be drunk on the beach in Galveston with my boyfriend. Okay. Love to the ancestors. Let me know when the reparation check arrives. Good luck. His words read like a wink to Audre Lorde, another queer black writer whose 1978 essay, Uses of the Erotic as Power, foreshadowed the lying flat movement and the nap ministry both. Miss Lorde wrote that when we begin to live from within outward, in touch with the power of the erotic within ourselves, and allowing that power to inform and illuminate our actions upon the world around us, then we begin to be responsible to ourselves in the deepest sense. For Miss Lorde, the erotic doesn't necessarily mean sex. Maybe the erotic sounds like a banjo. Maybe the erotic tastes like cilantro. Maybe it feels like fixing the washing machine. We'll know it, promises Miss Lorde, by what makes us exclaim yes to ourselves. Which brings us back to Diogenes. In his time, a cynic was someone who eschewed money, power, and fame, and instead sought to live self-sufficiently and in tune with nature. Hence Diogenes in his barrel, Lu Hazong in his bed, and Casey Gerald on the beach. Me, now in the hills. To be clear, there is an immense privilege in lying flat. But it's worth noting that Mr. Lau acknowledged the necessity of making a living, and at Hollaback Girl didn't say she never wanted to work a job or hone a craft. She said she doesn't want a career, a corporate-flavored word that conjures images of PowerPoints and power suits. While jobs are sustenance, careers are altars upon which all else are sacrificed. In her poem, The Summer Day, Mary Oliver asks, "Tell me, what is your plan to do with your one wild and precarious life?" My reply for now is simple: sit on the porch. It's not half bad, for what is the porch if not a place to chat with neighbors, to marvel at the hummingbird or at the feeder, to listen to the wind in the chimes, an altar for cynics, an altar for erotic, an altar for the future. I think that this phenomenon we call lying flat is the example of a system that's kind of broken, because the system's supposed to work for the people. And I just finished looking at something that Green Gorilla actually posted by Heidegger, talking about the technocratic world and that we live in, and becoming more automated. And as it becomes more automated, our whole being, our whole life becomes part of a system. We become cogs in a machine. And I think people are becoming tired of being pieces in a system instead of individuals, or having some kind of sense of individuality. Even though this technocratic age that we're moving into brings us safety, pleasures, and comfort, what do we lose on the other side? And if you have a disruption, sometimes that's what happens. You have a disruption. Like COVID-19 disrupted the whole system. It caused it to stop, caused it to pause. You know how, like, when you're, I don't know if you've ever been in a big factory or a big workplace and electricity goes out. And all of a sudden, this big, huge place becomes deathly quiet. No lights, no sounds, just deathly quiet. And then you realize where you're at. The space becomes really big and also really cold because the background noise or the constant hum of the system of the machines, your brain starts to ignore. So when it stops, all of a sudden the space is empty. And you got to fill it with something. And then you realize where you are. That your human being has become systematized, become not working a system or not being in a system. You become part of the system itself. And I think this lying flat movement is millennials realizing that they're part of a system that doesn't really serve them well? And is there other ways of survival other than the ways that you've been taught? So the Lying Flat movement, which is, I don't know if it's a protest or it's a referendum on the systems that have been built that requires our constant labor, our constant attention, because it's not just you working. If you don't pick up a cell phone or a tablet or go on the internet or you visit a site, the internet will die. If you don't use it, it's going to die. And so all our attention, not just our work, but all of our attention, our money, our, whatever that we pour into the system that keeps the system going, keep the system circulating. And as Heidegger says, what do we lose? And I think this pause, this time out that COVID has caused people to think, because you gained back something that you didn't know that you had, which is time, which is not only relaxing, but also retrospection. Is what I'm doing worth my labor, my time, and my attention that I'm pouring into the system? Something to think about. But we're going to revisit this lying flat because this also points to the seed cycle of the Mouse Utopia, also the demographic cycle of human beings in countries that also match up. And is this the end of the seed cycle? Is this the behavioral cliff that was talked about in the Mouse Utopia that Calhoun actually observed among the mice? It's something to keep an eye on. Anyway, that's all I got. I just wanted to read this and actually put this out there into the manosphere. Get your opinions, bringing it to your awareness. See what you think. See if the pause in people going back to work or people refusing to go back into the office. There's some validity to the lying flat movement in China, Korea, Japan, and other places. Something to think about. Well, with that, I'm going to jump out of here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.